Hey guys, thanks for joining me. And if you like what you see, please subscribe.
Hello, peoples. Welcome to Sharp Ends. Today I have a comparison of the Bravo 1 in magnica from Bark River Knives and the Genesis from LT Wright. This is an A2 steel. So I did a video like this before. If you're thinking to yourself, this is like deja vu all over again. But I made a lot of mistakes and a lot of people made a lot of comments, and I went and educated myself further, and I have since gone on a long camping trip with both of these knives and compared all the features that I could with them while I was out in the woods. So I'm going to try doing this again and do it better this time because you rightly pointed out that I didn't know what I was talking about. So hopefully I know a little bit more of what I'm talking about, but I'm not an expert in this at all. This is just my use and my wear and what I think of these two knives. First off, let's just talk about basically the sheaths. I like this sheath a lot. I like the dangly on it. I think it's really well made. I like the fact that it has a fire steel on it holder. This one I do believe maybe comes with a fire steel. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it didn't as the base model. Um, so there's that. I like this sheath more. I think it's more user friendly and just all around a better sheath. Secondly, about the sheath or whatever, I did use snow seal on this to make it watertight. Snow seal on this worked really well, and I like the snow seal. So let's pull out these knives and take a look at them. They are dirty because I did use them a lot, and I haven't cleaned them up for this review necessarily. So you can see a little bit of the wear on them. As far as profile and how big they are, they're almost exactly the same. The ergos on this is hefty and it feels good in the hand. It's almost like a hammer handle and the way that it feels in the hand, which is good because this is a Scandi grind, whereas this is a convex grind. And I like the way that this handles when I'm splitting wood. This is much more ergonomically friendly. This has the ramp on it, although the ramp is optional. So if you don't like this thumb ramp, you don't have to get it. I think a lot of people don't like it. I happen to like it, although I haven't handled a Bravo one without it. Next, just talking about the grinds, you can't necessarily compare these two grinds because they're kind of made for two different things. Both of them will stay sharp forever. I haven't tested these since I've come back, so I'm just going to go ahead and test them now. This I split a ton of wood with, but it's still sharping. I feel a little hesitation in one or two spots, but really nothing that big. And this one I'm going to assume is perfectly fine still. Again, I feel just a little bit of hesitation in one or two spots, but nothing too outrageous. As far as carving goes, I use both of these to make several things into feather stick and stuff like that. As far as carving goes, I like them both. I like both grinds, and I think they do excellently well. I can't tell which one would be better. This one is a little bit more finessey, but I really didn't have that much trouble carving with this knife either. I really did not. So, on that, I think it's kind of a wash. Next, let's talk about fire steels. So this throws a mean spark, and that's because of the sharpened spine. The sharpened spine throws a better spark than the Bravo because it's rounded a little bit on the spine. So this will throw a good spark, but this throws a much more significantly better spark. So as far as fire steel use goes, this takes the cake every single time. And as far as the ergos go, I mean, for what they are, the ergos are both great, and I would call that a wash too. It's just that one's slightly different than the other, but neither is bad. I do like this for certain kinds of cuts, for holding it reverse and cutting against my chest to carve with, or for feather sticking. I used these scallops a little bit as well for that, like choking up on it. For feather sticking with this with both of them feather sticked very well. There's a little bit you have to use different amount of finesse with each one, but they kind of wash out. I think for feather sticking, they're both excellent knives for feather sticking. Um, Next, as far as like, well, and speaking about carving, like, I carved a lot with both of these knives, and they both did an excellent job. However, when I was prepping food, this was obviously the better knife. This cut through meat very nicely, sliced through. I had a loaf of sourdough bread, and this cut beautiful slices. This, not so much, much harder to do because it was more like splitting the bread than actually slicing the bread, but it did a fine job. It's just that this, as far as food prep goes, the Bravo is definitely gonna take the cake on that. For splitting wood, this knife just absolutely tore the competition apart. I bashed on this knife. I bashed on both of these knives, but I bashed on this knife up to the tip, doing some pretty thick wood, and this just held on forever. Now this is A2, and is a much tougher steel. Not much, but it's tougher steel than magnica. I don't know how fair it is to compare the steels of these two knives because, um, you can get these knives in a multitude of different steels. Um, so let's just go ahead and start talking about like the brand comparison. LT, both of these are made in America. LT Wright has fewer options, but not so limited. But like if you're going to get a custom or you're going to get like a DLT pre-order of a Bark River knife, you're going to have a lot more options than you will with this. But that being said, you can find a large variety of scales in this material too. I mean, in this brand as well. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like what are you gonna do with that? It, like I have a Bark River here, a field edition with maple burl, yellow and maple burl, which is absolutely beautiful, right? Whereas I have a semi-custom I got from the Red Wall and this very nice double red micarta with these nice mountain textured scales, and this is also very nice. So you get a little bit more options usually with Bark River than you will with LT. Both companies are very good on customer service, and I think that they, in general, have come a long way. More so with Bark River. Bark River has quality control issues sometimes. They have gotten better from what I've read in the last couple of years, but they still will occasionally throw out a dud or something that's not quite perfect. They have a larger capacity for making knives, I think, than LT. But it seems like LT, I've never really read anything that's a quality control issue for them. Please, if I am wrong about that, let me know. I'm being completely transparent here that I don't know everything about these knives. I'm just giving you my opinion. So, when you're gambling away some money, in general, you should be aware that you might have a quality control issue with Bark River over LT Wright. LT Wright has a saber grind, high saber grind, and flat grind, and the Scandi grind. I assume they have a convex grind, but I don't know that for sure. I know Bark River specializes in this kind of grind, and it is phenomenal. What I mean by that is that the knife swoops down to one edge. It just curves over, and it's actually thicker in the middle, so it's not very thin behind the edge, but it comes down to a thin edge. And when I'm talking about Scandi, I'm talking about this where it has a flat and then a very pointy part here at the end with the secondary grind. And it too comes down to, it has a thick behind the edge, but like this. And this is obviously better for splitting type things, bushcraft type things. So I think that's everything I really want to say about both of these knives, because I don't want to get in trouble and say something that, again, is totally false. I will say that I like both of these knives. I liked carrying them both when I went camping. I find a use for each of them in certain situations. This is more like an all-around camp knife that will do the things that this knife does, but it also does the cooking really well. This knife is a monster as far as prepping and starting a fire, and I think is better than the Bravo. Um, so, they're just a little bit different in how you're going to be using them. If I'm around the campfire and I'm cooking, I'm going to build a fire with this. When I'm done cooking, I'm going to use this knife to prep the food the final little bit, right? So that's what I've got to say about these knives. I hope that this redone comparison of the Bravo and the Genesis meets with your approval. Thank you so much to everyone in that last video. I've actually pulled down that last video, so don't bother go looking for it, because although it had a lot of views, I just felt like it was time to shut that one down because I was getting a lot more negative comments rather than constructive at the end. When it first went up, a lot of people were giving me constructive criticism, and then it just evolved into this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, which, is an absolute fair assessment of where that video was. So I hope that this has redeemed myself in your eyes. And thank you so much for joining me. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. You can also become a Patreon by following the link down below in the description. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next time on Sharp Ends. Bye-bye now.